To another edition of Diaspora Weekly here on DNT. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and if I'm smiling wider than usual, there's a reason for it. I'm joined by an old friend. We've been to battles together. We have the battle scars to prove it. But you know what? I'm going to tease you a little bit. I'm not going to tell you his name. I'm going to milk this a little bit and take you on a short break. When you come back, that's when you meet my friend. Stay tuned.
Hello, my name is Kofi Opon Ochre, and I bring you NASA on DNT, a program designed to expose corruption and indiscipline in our society and advocate for the punishment of these offenders whose activities impede national development. The National Road Safety Commission indicates that Ghana loses $230 million to road accident, with over 1,600 deaths recorded every year. In 2018, Shraj report indicated that Ghana loses 13.5 billion Ghana cedis to corruption. And United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF has also stated that Ghana loses $290 million to poor sanitation alone. This is not right. So make a date with me, and together let's name and shame the offenders of the law. NASA, see something, say something.
Every weekday at 12 and 5 p.m., DNT Newsroom brings you the most topical, fact-based, and up-to-date news from Ghana and around the world.
Politics, business, sports, and news from the diaspora, all covered in this comprehensive news update.
If it matters, DNT Newsroom will have it covered.
DNT News, be informed.
Welcome back to Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and I'm joined by my good old friend. We've had battle scars together on Diaspora Advocacy, Professor Kweku Azan of legal, what's the word I'm using for here? Legal fame. Welcome.
Thank you, Jermaine. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're looking good.
Oh, thank you.
And happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You see, I'm trying to keep this private. You guys keep bringing it up. Now I got messages from all over. Somebody said I should go on forced retirement. And he's older than me, and he's working. Can you believe that? Welcome, Kweku.
Thank you, thank you.
Listen, when I get with you, sometimes I feel like we should turn the cameras off and really just go at it. What is so frustrating about Ghanaians or the government or Ghana as a whole accepting back her diaspora?
Good question, Jermaine. It's hard to understand, especially since Ghana has always been a trailblazer in diaspora advocacy, starting with Nkrumah, who had the vision that unless we have a united Africa, unless we link, unless we connect with the diasporans, the black race will never assume its rightful position in the human race.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit confusing that we tend to erect a wall between those of us here and those in the diaspora.
But we have a lot of intellectuals here. Why is it that they don't understand it? I mean, so you go to school, you go to college, you learn how to analyze and all that stuff. So you know this, when you put it like that, Nkrumah says it, everybody says it. But why is it that some folks in position to make this a reality choose to erect those roadblocks that you're talking about?
A variety of reasons. The first one is politics, because when you go back to our history, you see that the concept of Ghanaian citizenship is of recent vintage. Until May 1957, there was no such thing as a Ghanaian citizen.
Okay.
We were all British subjects. And then we got independence, March 1957, and then somewhere in May 1957, we passed our first nationality law. And when we passed that first nationality law, we did not abandon our British connection. So at that time, every Ghanaian was also a British.
At that time, you didn't need a visa to go to England.
No, because you were a British.
A British, yeah.
And before 1957 May, there was no such thing as
A
a
Ghanaian.
Ghanaian citizen. You know, we had 4 states, the Gold Coast colony, we had Ashanti, we had the Northern Territories, and then we had Transvolta Togoland.
Right.
But as a matter of national identity with representation at UN, we didn't have anything like that. We were a colony of Britain.
Okay.
So when in May we passed our first Nationality Act, we all became
Ghanaians.
not just Ghanaians,
Ghanaians
but dual
and
citizens
Okay.
of Ghana, of Britain, and of the Commonwealth.
So wait, my father is a British?
Your
also?
father and your grandfather, they were British.
What
All of
changed?
us.
What changed?
Well, the British changed their law somewhere along the line, I believe in the 80s.
Okay.
And that ended that connection.
That connection, okay.
So depending on when you were born, you were automatically a British subject.
Okay.
Now, what happened subsequent to that, starting in 1959, was that the politicians perceived an advantage in eliminating some people. In those days, the CPP had the majority. Nkrumah was the leader, and he was the leader, of course, of CPP. And there were elements in the country who were not CPP, particularly the UP, but also the Muslim Association. And so he brought this idea that he could deport some people who were not only Ghanaians, but had some roots in Nigeria or Niger and so on. So he deported, or he sought to deport Balogun, Amadou Bamba, and others. And this went to court. And the court said, no, you cannot deport these people because they are Ghanaians. Nevertheless, Krobadusei, then Minister of Interior, deported them. And that's when we started this division of you are not 100% Ghanaian, or you are a Ghanaian, but you are also a Nigerian, therefore you are a dual citizen, and we are going to erect barriers. What is happening in Ghana, by the way, is not a uniquely Ghanaian problem.
Okay.
I would say it's a uniquely African problem created by African politicians. Because when you go to Zambia, the person who led Zambia to independence
Kenneth Kaunda.
is Kenneth Kaunda.
Kenneth Kaunda, yes.
When he stepped down in 1991 and wanted to return in 1996, he was disqualified because somebody said his mother was from Malawi. Therefore, he was not 100% Zambian, even though he had...
Whoa. The guy who helped Zambia to obtain independence was not
only just helped, he led the
it.
independence movement, and he was president for many years after independence.
Okay.
In 1996, when he tried to come back, he was disqualified because his mother was from, Malawi.
Malawi. Okay.
Not just Zambia.
Yeah.
Let's just come closer to Ghana. Ivory Coast. Their current president, you know who their current president is?
Ouattara.
Yes. Do you know he was disqualified from running for president?
That's right.
Sometime in the 90s.
Right.
Because apparently his parents were deemed to have come from Burkina Faso. Even though for all practical purposes he was Ivorian and led all his life as an Ivorian.
Yeah.
So African politicians have this tendency of politicizing citizenship.
For their own benefit.
For their own benefit. Because when you walk down the streets of Accra or Kumasi or Tamale and so on and so forth, nobody that you see on the street care whether you are a Ghanaian and a Nigerian or a Ghanaian and American and so on. They know you as a Ghanaian.
Yeah. Interestingly, what you've said brings to mind, you help, as a matter of fact, I remember back and forth, I actually approached you and you helped craft a definition of the diaspora that I so much love. I don't have it in front of me. I can't ship it because I didn't prepare to bring it up. But do you remember what that definition was?
No, I don't.
I think it was something to the effect that Ghanaian citizenship includes members of Ghanaian nationals and their relatives, as well as those with roots to or stake in Ghana who are currently domiciled outside the borders of Ghana. Something to that, I'm paraphrasing. And so, based on that, right, I'm thinking that a Ghanaian, someone who has a stake in Ghana, right, when you walk down the street, you see somebody in, let's say, Adabraka, who doesn't have anything to contribute to the nation, okay? But someone like you or me or some who is also a national, who was born and raised here, lived elsewhere for an extended period of time, come back. I come here, set up a business. I employ, 20, 25 people. But you're not Ghanaian enough. But the guy that's sitting somewhere in circle begging is more Ghanaian than I am. How does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make any sense because, you see, there's nothing like a fractional citizenship.
Yes.
When you are given a passport, there's nothing like a half passport. You are either a Ghanaian or you are not a Ghanaian. And once you are a Ghanaian, all the benefits and all the duties and all the responsibilities that attach to that Ghanaian, that being a Ghanaian, should flow to you and should flow from you to the polity.
That's right.
So this notion of trying to make a distinction between Ghanaians and the real Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians, it was debated at the 1968 Constituent Assembly.
Okay.
And then former President Kufuor made the argument that it will be against natural justice to exclude anyone who is a Ghanaian merely because he happens to be the citizen of another country.
Okay.
Obeda Samoa made a similar argument that, look, if you are a Ghanaian, then all your political rights should flow to you.
Okay.
And the notion of having some Ghanaians not enjoying their full rights as Ghanaians is just an anathema to political development.
What is interesting about this is President Kufuor, NPP, Obeda Samoa, NDC. So this is not a partisan thing. It's something that should be a common sense thing.
This is not partisan. And then you mention NPP and then NDC. But I like to go back because in those days we had Joe Appiah. Joe Appiah was Ababase. Okay, I don't know if you remember or not.
I remember.
Joe Appiah was Ababase, and he added his voice.
Okay.
That, look, these people, the dual citizens, because there were many, and we all started as dual citizens, of course.
Yeah.
They have fought alongside single citizens and made Ghana what it is.
Yeah.
So any attempt to exclude them will actually be problematic.
Interestingly enough, we hear recently that President Trump has set up a task force to revisit people's citizenship application, including people who fought in the U.S. Army on behalf of the United States, to strip them of their citizenship. We hear that and we think, oh, what a terrible thing. But meanwhile, we're in Ghana doing the same thing. We're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, we extend this citizenship to the voting. Stay tuned, please.
My name is Novi.
The name is Phil.
Iman is the name.
Laugh
And learn.
What is the biggest animal in the world?
King Kong.
What's the meaning of the I in iPhone?
iTunes.
What is Facebook?
It's a book that you say it on your face.
What is the last book of the Bible?
Methodist.
Your father is a landlord. What will you be?
Land Commission.
House owner.
Land Rover.
What do we do at a grocery shop?
They play football.
Who is Santa Claus?
Teacher will check you.
Hello, this is Nanansa, and you're watching Homeland, the Story of the Returnee,
where we dive into the perspective of the diaspora in and out of Ghana. It's fun, engaging, and motivational.
I think Ghana is a wonderful place. I love Ghana. I truly do.
We need our diasporans for our country to develop to where it should be.
Hey! Come on, turn around. Turn around, let me see.
Make a date with me right here on DNT every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Homeland. Brain drain, brain gain.
Welcome back to Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and I'm joined by the famous legal brain, Professor Kweku Asare, a.k.a. Kweku Azar. What's up with that, the difference between Asare and Azar? Anyway, I've known you for a long time, but I don't know what the difference.
Well, you know, it's actually the same thing. And Azar is the way my French teacher used to pronounce Asare when I was in secondary school.
Okay.
And so, you know.
So that's where it came from.
Yeah. The students, preferred Azar.
Okay.
Just like the French teacher.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Now, before we left, we're going to transition to ROPA, but I'll shelve it for a minute because somebody in the studio just asked a question right now. If you have dual citizenship, where is your allegiance? And so I got curious. I Googled the definition of allegiance. Say loyalty or commitment to a superior or to a group or cause. So basically it's talking about loyalty and commitment, right? Kweku, you were in the States when Ghana was playing United States in the World Cup. Which team did you support?
I supported Ghana, of course.
Okay. You live in the state, you're a professor of a university. Get paid thousands of dollars. But every year you come back to Gimpa to teach, to University of Ghana to teach. And so somebody is going to tell you that you're allegiant, maybe you're not Ghanaian enough. What do you tell that person?
Well, you know, the first thing is people like to use the word or the term allegiance. But nobody really knows how to define it or what it means.
Right.
The second thing is that allegiance is always selectively applied. So for instance, Ghana does not have a problem when we are playing soccer and then there is a penalty to be taken and they would choose someone like Kevin Prince Boateng, who is a Ghanaian and a German, to go take the penalty against Germany.
That's right.
Because if allegiance is a problem, that's where it will matter the most.
Yes.
Because in that case, he's just there and he's a German, and then he's going to take. It doesn't bother. it doesn't bother us.
Right.
Third, Ghanaians are very happy to employ a Serbian coach to coach the Black Stars to play against Serbia. Nobody talks about allegiance. Fourth, if you are an Ashanti, maybe through your mother, and you are a Ga, maybe through your father, you are you have dual ethnicity. Nobody will question your allegiance. Every human being has multiple allegiances. We have allegiance to our family, we have allegiance to our clan, We have allegiance to our religion. We have allegiance to our country, and so on. Folks know how to manage multiple allegiances. It's not a problem at all. Now, if I was born a Ghanaian, and then subsequently I assumed the citizenship of another country, you would think that the one who would be more concerned about the fact of my dual citizenship will be the second country.
Yes.
Because they would think, boy, you were not one of us.
Yeah.
You were born somewhere else, and you become one of us.
Yeah.
So we don't trust you.
Yeah.
But in this case, we reversed it.
Yeah.
Ghana, where you were born, they are questioning your allegiance
Yeah.
at a time when the second country is not questioning your allegiance.
Representative Omar, Congresswoman from Minnesota.
Yes.
She was born and raised in Somalia.
Yes, yes.
But she's able to go to United States and run for Congress there.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, I was born and raised in Ghana. Just because I picked up a citizenship, I cannot run for parliament here.
That's why we are not developing, because we are caught up in issues that do not matter.
Yeah.
You know, people will talk, oh, you don't have allegiance.
Yeah.
What does it even mean to say somebody has allegiance?
Yeah.
Let us go back to Belson versus Rawlings, a case that was adjudicated in the 80s when Rawlings wanted to run for president. Because Belson was arguing that Rawlings was not a Ghanaian. Belson was arguing that Rawlings is a Scot because his father comes from Scotland. This case went to court, and Rawlings filed an affidavit that when he was born, he was a British subject. And subsequently, when Ghana passed the Nationality Act, he became a Ghanaian. So he is both a citizen of Ghana and of Britain. That is a sworn affidavit by Rawlings.
Yeah.
And the judge said, look, just because someone is a dual citizen doesn't mean he doesn't have allegiance to Ghana. That is a court decision.
But I like the legal argument. But for me, those of us who are not lawyers, right? We know how many Ghanaians they say you are a college professor. The rest of it, they say, oh, we clean toilets. Fine. So a guy goes to America, clean toilets, quote unquote, makes his money. And instead of using it to enjoy life in America, he brings his hard-earned money to a place where somebody is likely to swindle him out of his money. And this person's allegiance to Ghana is questioned. But the politician who now waits for those dollars to come, and they do 1, 2, 1, 2, and then the moment they get the dollars in their hand, they take it to go and put in a bank in Dubai or somewhere. How does that person have more allegiance to Ghana than the one who brought the dollars in?
Yeah, part of the problem is whenever we are talking about this problem, people tend to think it is a problem that is limited to Ghanaians who've gone to America or to Canada or to UK. No. Yeah. It is a problem that is right here, your neighbor. See, when you start thinking about people like Nkrumah, or your neighbor whose father comes from Nigeria, and mother is a Ghanaian, born right here in Ghana.
Yeah.
They all fall into this tent.
Dual citizenship.
Yes, except, because they were born here and they haven't traveled and they don't have a passport. People don't easily bring into their minds that these people should also, under the rules, be disqualified, just like they are disqualifying you and I.
But Samuel was able to run for
because, you see, we think of the problem as it is a Ghanaian American thing. Yeah. And that's why I brought in the issue of Rawlings. Yeah. Because Rawlings is also a dual citizen. Yeah. But nobody talks about that. Yeah. And Rawlings has been president for 8 years. Yes. So if Rawlings has been president for 8 years and nobody talked about that, and the country did not go to hell because of maybe he did, but if Rawlings has been president and he was a dual citizen, what then is the basis for imprisoning someone like Adamu Sankadi? When you imprison someone like Adamu Sankadi, you create so many problems. Problem number one is you are denying him, Adamu, a Ghanaian, his right to participate fully and equally in the political space. Number two, you are denying the citizens who want to vote for him the right to vote for him. So it's not just the dual citizen, it's also the citizens who want to vote for the dual citizen. And third, there are a number of offices. The last time I counted, it was about 40 offices that dual citizens are not allowed to hold. You are denying the president the opportunity to choose Ghanaians that he wants to work with. Because if I'm president and I want to work with you, Jermaine, I want you to be the Minister of Communications. Why shouldn't the people of Ghana trust me to make that appointment? Why shouldn't we trust the voters to decide whoever...
decide whether Jermaine is good enough to run for parliament to represent them?
Exactly. Why are we restricting that space so much?
Yeah, you brought in something that I hadn't thought about. So if a child is born to a Ghanaian parent, a Ghanaian mother and an Ivorian father, that child has dual citizenship.
Yes.
That person is entitled to choose which country to which his allegiance lie between the two, right? I mean, even though he was born in here, he could very well say, you know what, I'm going to Ivory Coast with my father. But your point that you raise is that because that child was born here in Ghana, hasn't traveled outside, they don't see that, right?
Yes.
But me, that was born and raised in Ghana, just because I acquired a stupid paper.
That's what they see.
That's called a passport.
Yes.
All of a sudden, Akwawi and Trustino. Let me say he likes America more than here. Yes. How does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense. That's what I'm saying. They don't even understand the law that they are seeking to apply. Because you see, when you sit down with them, or if we were allowed to actually discuss this and deliberate on it, I have no doubts that I will be able to prevail. Because if you follow what they are doing strictly, there will be many in parliament who actually should be disqualified.
Yes.
Because they are dual citizens. People think you are a dual citizen only when you
pick up a passport somewhere. No.
And it is also true that you are a Ghanaian if you don't have a Ghanaian passport.
Yes.
Having a passport is not what makes you a citizen. You are a citizen because of a certain citizenship law that you that you qualify for.
So you mentioned something about not being able to allow this legal process to move on. Is anybody blocking? Because you made a very sound argument. Okay, when I came back, one time I'll tell you I was exiting at the airport with my American passport. They said, "Oh, you've overstayed your visa." Right on the spot, $100, bam, they hit me for $100. So when I went, I said, no, I'm going to process my Ghanaian passport. And so when I came back, the first place I went to was Ministry of Interior. I purchased a form for dual citizenship. And they sold it to me. I went and filled everything, had my money ready. When I was submitting it, they themselves at the Ministry of Interior told me that, no, you no longer need to process this because of a case that you filed at the Supreme Court and won. Because of that, I don't need to process the dual citizen. I can use my birth certificate to walk to the passport office and do my Ghanaian passport. So Ghanaians abroad, if you're watching this, I want you to know this. You do not need the dual citizenship application. You just need to pick up your birth certificate that proves that you're a Ghanaian, and you can walk right into the passport office and obtain your Ghanaian passport. But let's talk about that. The way you were able to make a delineation between a citizen and a national. Tell us the difference.
Well, national is cultural.
Okay.
Citizenship is juridical or law.
Okay.
So if you were born in Ghana, as an example, you were born a Ghanaian, you have some cultural tissues or connection, and that is what is defining your nationality. Now, you can only have one nationality.
Yes.
But you can have multiple citizenships because citizenship is a law. So if you are in Austria and you become a full professor, you are automatically made an Austrian citizen.
Okay.
In some countries, if you can bring in a certain level of dollars or pounds, you can be made a citizen. So you can travel around the world and acquire as many citizenships as you can.
In fact, I have a funny thing to say about that. You can only have one mother.
Yes.
But you can have multiple wives.
In a way,
in a way,
yes.
That's a funny way that I look at it.
In a way, yes. That is why we have something called motherland.
Yes.
See, so your motherland is Ghana.
You can't change that.
You cannot change that.
But you can change your citizenship, just like you can change
wives. You can acquire another citizenship. You see, the whole citizenship problem started with the British. The British, in those days, because we used to fight wars, the British wanted people to fight wars for them. So they had this doctrine called permanent allegiance. And permanent allegiance means once you were born a British or once you were a British subject, then you are always a British subject. You could never renounce that. A couple of British people went to the United States. And later on, they will come home to visit. And the British will conscript them into the army to fight wars for them. And the US didn't like that very much. So the US also had a doctrine that they call the expatiating doctrine that allows you to renounce or to add another citizenship to your British citizenship. So in 1812, actually, the British fought the United States over this allegiance versus expatiation. But since then, the world has grown and it has been generally accepted. It is commonly understood that, look, citizenship should not be treated as some physical cabinet where you can belong, a file can belong to one cabinet at a time, right? So the old files, you have a file, a folder, and it can only belong to one cabinet at a time. These days, people think about citizenship more in terms of an electronic file that can exist in multiple places, right? It can be in the cloud and you can access it from anywhere that you want. So that is why the whole world is embracing dual citizenship, because people have realized the advantage inherent in having people who, you know.
So what is the status of the court case now?
Well, the court case has been decided, so the card, you don't need a card. The law that they passed in Parliament, unfortunately, NPP passed that law. It allowed even a minister to decide that a dual citizen cannot hold this position. That was, the Supreme Court also said that was unconstitutional. But there are still some positions. I didn't address those positions in my suit because I thought I didn't want to expand the litigation too much. The biggest one is Article 94(2)(a), which says if you have allegiance to a country other than Ghana, you cannot be a member of parliament. And there are about 40 positions that you cannot hold if you cannot be a member of parliament. So one of the positions.
So that provision in the Constitution doesn't say citizenship.
No,
it
says
uses the word allegiance.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
And one of the positions is a membership of the Lands Commission or membership of the Regional Lands Commission.
Look at that.
So theoretically, you could have an Asantehene who is a dual citizen, because to be an Asantehene, there's no requirement that you can be a dual citizen. But the Asantehene who is a dual citizen cannot, under our laws, sit under the Ashanti Regional Lands Commission. This is crazy. This is crazy. It's completely nonsensical.
This makes perfect sense.
You know.
Well, on that note, I'm even exhausted. Just wrapping my mind around it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll take a quick break.
As the national regulator of the communications industry in Ghana, the National Communications Authority seeks to ensure an environment that is safe and fair for consumers and service providers. NCA grants licenses and authorizations for operation of communication systems and services, develops guidelines to streamline communication activities, establish and monitor quality of service indicators for operators and service providers. NCA is in 8 regions: Nkrumah, Tamale, Takoradi, Kumasi, Ho, Koforidua, Sunyani, and Bolgatanga. Do you have unresolved complaints with your service providers? Contact us on 0800110662, 0307011419 between the hours of 8 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. from Monday to Friday, or visit our website at www.nca.org.gh and follow the procedure for filing a complaint or submitting enquiry. National Communications Authority, Communications for Development.
Every weekday at 12 and 5 p.m., DNT Newsroom brings you the most topical, fact-based, and up-to-date news from Ghana and around the world.
Politics, business, sports, and news from the diaspora, all covered in this comprehensive news update.
If it matters, DNT Newsroom will have it covered.
DNT News. Be informed.
Let me guess, you're probably wondering, another talk show? What could they possibly have to talk about?
Relationships, gossip, or entertainment?
What if we bring it all to you in the good, the bad, and the ugly way?
Yes, you heard that right. We're bringing you the latest stories from around the world and right here in Ghana. We come with our unique backgrounds and beliefs.
But when we come together, we put all our wild thoughts and concerns on the table.
So sit back, relax, as we bring you
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Welcome back to Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah. I'm joined by the famous Professor Kwekwazari. Kwekwazari, I'm going to be French now. Parlez-vous français?
Oui.
Petit
français.
Tu parles un peu de français. Quand tu vas au Paris, tu peux parler avec les Parisiens?
Petit français.
Petit français. Okay, no problem. Listen, before we went, you were talking about now your push to address the provision in the Constitution. What have you done up until this point so that we know what needs to be done next?
We've done a lot. We've been seeing the people who can make change behind the scenes. We've seen the president, we've seen the speaker, we've seen majority and minority leaders, we've seen council of state. We've drafted a bill.
You've cooked the food for them.
Everything is ready. All they need to do is to introduce it
into parliament.
Into parliament, debate it and vote on it. Recently, they introduced an amendment to the Special Prosecutor Act because they had the same problem in the Special Prosecutor Act, which was only passed in 2019. They said if you are a dual citizen, you can't be a special prosecutor. And then I don't know what happened. Maybe they were trying to appoint somebody who is and then they found out the person is a dual citizen. So they quickly brought a bill to amend that so that if you are a dual citizen, you can be a special prosecutor.
Oh, really?
So I've approached them and I've said to them, why are you doing this in a piecemeal fashion?
Yes.
There are other positions. Let's put all the positions together and eliminate the restrictions. I have a bill. You guys don't even have to do any work. All you have to do is to introduce the bill. And then let's get moving. The president himself said when he was addressing the Diaspora Summit, the year of return, that he's going to do something about it. But people have been doing something about it since 1992.
Right.
It is time to act. My proposition is that if people are serious, then we should introduce and vote on that bill so that for the 2020 parliament, dual citizens can enter. This is especially the case if we are going to introduce ROPA, because you cannot be sending ballots overseas and telling people overseas that if they have the citizenship of another country, then they cannot represent or they cannot be represented in parliament. That is a problem.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
Right.
So I am proposing that that bill, which I have given to the speaker and others, be introduced and voted upon so that dual citizens can participate not only in the voting, but also be voted for in 2020.
Okay, very good. Kwaku, that's the legal approach. But the political reality is that the same people who are going to vote to eliminate that clause in the Constitution are the same people who fear that when you come from Florida with your dollars, you can change it and you have more money to run against him to take his position. So what's the reality that these people will actually vote to eliminate that clause in the Constitution?
Well, that's why shows like this are extremely important. Because what you want to do is to appeal to Ghanaians.
Their conscience.
Their conscience is to appeal to our brothers and our sisters and our mothers and our fathers. They have, known us since we're babies. Some of them we've gone to school with. We've played gutter to gutter with. We've laughed. We've done afternoon jumps at Metropole, at Tiptoe. We have done everything with them. And so if now we want to return to help, there are restrictions in our ways. We expect them to rise up and to tell their parliamentarians that you better eliminate those restrictions or we are coming to get you. Politicians respond to pressure.
Right.
If they know voters are informed and voters will hold them accountable, they always do the right thing.
Yeah.
Everything that we've been talking about really is potential conflict of interest. That's what we are talking about, because people perceive that if you're a dual citizen, sometimes you will have a conflict of interest, right? That's what it is.
In fact,
it's not a question of allegiance, it's a question of conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But in a variety of situations, conflict of interest do arise. And when they arise, the proper way to resolve the conflict of interest is through disclosure. And in the case of court cases, for instance, through recusal. You recuse yourself from the case.
That's right.
So the whole notion that we would say somebody who is a Ghanaian and a Togolese cannot be an ambassador of Togo because of conflict of interest. But therefore, he cannot be an ambassador in any other country.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but Kwaku, more importantly also, it's not as if when you eliminate these clauses, then we walk in automatically into these positions. We still have to compete with everybody else, just like everybody else that's here to compete with it.
No, yeah, of course.
It's not as if once you open the floodgates and say, oh, okay, for now, every diasporan comes and walks straight. I still have to campaign and prove my case to the electorate that I'm good enough to represent them.
Exactly. And it's possible that nobody would even run. It's just the whole notion of if you are a Ghanaian, it must mean something.
Yes.
And what it means is you can vote and you can be voted for.
That's correct.
Otherwise, you are not a Ghanaian. You are just being called a Ghanaian.
Okay.
The thing that makes somebody a Ghanaian is the fact that they can participate fully in the political space.
Okay.
Other than that, we are just like aliens. So if you create a Ghanaian who cannot participate fully in the community, then basically you have solved it. Created a big problem.
On this note, we're going to transition quickly without taking a break into the vote, because I notice you've mentioned the vote quite often. But a bit of a joke here. I think somebody asked a question on Facebook. It's like, oh, you two, you're a citizen of Ghana and a citizen of America. If Ghana go to war with America, which side would you support? Do you know what somebody said?
No.
It said, if Ghana and America go to war, it wouldn't matter which one I support because Ghana would be annihilated. So it really doesn't, these things don't matter. We just make a big deal out of it. But let's quickly transition to...
you know that question, where it matters is that somebody who can think that way and is formulating policy, that basically is going to tell you that this country cannot go forward.
Yeah.
Because that's somebody who is very limited in his cognitive abilities. Why are you sitting there imagining that Ghana would go to war with America? And based on that, you formulate a policy. That is like, it makes no sense. You are making bad policy. So that has implications. If you think that way, then I'm afraid you shouldn't be formulating policy.
Let's talk about, you mentioned voting. Now ROPA is also on the radar. You've met, you and I have worked with ROPA for a long period of time. Where is the current situation? I know I met with Bosman, and you subsequently met with Bosman and his team. Bosman, by the way, is the chairman of the ROPA Roadmap Committee, and they're currently in Senegal. I think by the time this one shows, they're probably back. But you met with them. How did it go?
It went very well. You know, I think they are taking their job very seriously, and so I'm very pleased with what they are doing. Okay. They have some committee that is going around trying to get feedback. I would encourage them to include some of us in their activities, because we can bring some unique insights, given the fact that we live in these places that they are trying to send the ballots to. Right. They are going to have some challenges. One of the challenge would be, how do you vote for a parliamentarian, for instance?
And you live in
versus
Greenland.
How do you vote for a president? Because the president's constituency is the whole of the voting population, it's very easy to solve that. You know, no matter where you are, you just vote for the president. But how about parliamentarian? If I live in England,
who's my parliamentarian?
Yeah, which constituency should I be assigned to? It's a very tricky question, because the easiest way to answer that question is, well, choose a constituency, or the constituency where you used to live before you traveled. But that is not very easy.
It can be easily abused.
It's not very easy to do, because when you read the Constitution, it says you must be resident in that constituency. And of course, you are not resident there. The other problem, if you do that, is that the parties are going to come together with their people overseas to assign them to the more competitive constituencies. So MPP people who are outside the country will never say they come from Ashanti region, or they want to be allocated to the constituencies that can go either way. The same with the NDC. So what most countries do when they are faced with that dilemma is to create overseas constituencies. It says, okay, those of you in North America, you have 2 constituencies, as an example. Those of you in Europe, you have 2 constituencies, as an example. Those of you in Africa, you have 2 constituencies, as an example. Then the diaspora, the overseas voters, will vote for someone to represent them. It doesn't mean that person should come from the diaspora. That person could very well be somebody who lives in Ghana, like you. You live in Ghana. But the people in North America, because they know you, they can say, well, we want Jermaine to be our parliamentarian. And then you represent them. So that's the way you solve that problem.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Viewers, you heard it first here in Diaspora Weekly. Professor Kwaku Azar is proposing that overseas constituencies should be created in Parliament to solve the problem of ROPA, whereby you have difficulty assigning which constituency a Ghanaian voter in, say, Austria would be grappled with. And so once they do that, then what? I mean, as far as the demarcation is concerned, it's not that important in terms of number and everything, because let's face it, Senegal is doing that.
A lot of countries do that.
Senegal, check this out. Senegal has a 165-seat legislative body. Do you know how many of it is reserved for the diaspora?
I think 8.
15.
Okay.
So 15 of the 165 seats in the Senegalese legislature is reserved for Senegalese abroad. Ghana has 275 constituencies. How many is reserved for diasporans?
0.
So with what you're proposing...
We don't even vote.
We don't even vote. With what you're proposing, not only would it solve the problem of this constituency issue, it's actually going to free up the parliamentarians who are afraid that we'll come and run them and take their positions from them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to delve into the nitty-gritty of the ROPA implementation. Stay tuned.
Hello, this is Nanansa, and you're watching Homeland, the Story of the Returnee,
where we dive into the perspective of the diaspora in and out of Ghana. It's fun, engaging, and motivational.
I think Ghana is a wonderful place. I love Ghana. I truly do.
We need our diasporans for our country to develop to where it should be.
Hey! Come on, turn around. Turn around, let me see.
Make a date with me right here on DNT every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Homeland. Brain drain, brain gain.
Welcome back to Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah here on DNT, and I'm joined by Professor Kwekwaza. Prof, it's been a great conversation, but let's wrap it up with, okay, so you've solved one problem, the constituency problem. And from what you've, how likely is it that you think this ROPA committee will adopt that?
I mean, it's hard to tell, but, you know, when I spoke to them, this thing came up, and I think
they felt pretty good about
it. Yes, I felt pretty good about it. Initially, they were very skeptical, but they asked a lot of questions, and I provided a lot of answers. And the more answers I provided, the more comfortable they became, and a lot of them started actually seeing that it makes more sense than, you know, the original idea was that let's introduce this at only the presidential level.
Yeah.
And so I argued that that will quickly be challenged at the Supreme Court. And if it is challenged, they are going to lose. So they better solve the problem.
Okay, very good. So now there's one issue about ROPA that I think the last time you and I spoke, we were on opposing sides of it. And that is, what document would you use to register the Ghanaian voter abroad?
Well, you know, it's very simple. ROPA and its implementation should, as far as it can, mimic what goes on here.
Okay.
So the same documents that people use to identify themselves as Ghanaians here should be the same documents that they use to identify themselves as Ghanaians outside.
Okay.
You cannot create two identification regimes.
Okay.
One for people in Ghana and then another for people outside Ghana. In the case of people outside Ghana, the identification is actually very simple, because unless you traveled without a passport, there's a way of identifying yourself automatically as a Ghanaian because you have a Ghanaian passport.
Okay. So then my thing is, I've heard it spoken in certain circles that the Ghana card, which is even facing problem, it's in local implementation. If you're waiting for the Ghana card to be implemented abroad before you use it to register, then ROPA will probably not be implemented until 2028. But the passport, like you said, in my opinion, right? The passport is the one document that, in fact, almost everyone, technically speaking, if you are exiting the country, you should use a passport. So it's assumed that when you exited, you had your passport. And if it expired, you can always renew that. Now, granted, because of ECOWAS, now people are able to exit the country without a passport to go to Togo and neighboring countries. But as a matter of expediency, why wouldn't you zero in on the passport as the only document to register the Ghanaian abroad?
That's what they would do. That's what they would do. That's what I told them to do.
Very good.
And I think I convinced them because they had other ideas to check on people's legal status and all that. And I said, no, that's not your business.
Yes.
Your business is just to register Ghanaians. So if somebody can prove that he's a Ghanaian, then you don't ask further questions, you register them.
So interestingly enough, the last time we spoke, I think you were looking at it from a legal challenge point of view that if I used ECOWAS to go to Togo and I don't have a passport, why should I have a passport in order to be able to register. But right now, you're sold on the idea of a passport.
Oh yeah, I've always been sold on the idea of a passport. But if you don't have a passport and you have some other form of identifying yourself, then that's okay. That's good.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, whatever documents they accept here as a way of identifying you as a Ghanaian should be replicated when they go overseas.
Well, so see, that's where I had the issue, because if you use the birth certificate, for example,
I don't think they even allow the birth certificate here, do they?
They okay. So because some are arguing that we should, if I have a child, my daughter in Texas should be able to use her birth certificate to register, and I don't agree with that.
If they say that again?
That my daughter, who was born in Texas, has a Harris County birth certificate, okay, should be able to use that to register for ROPA. And my problem with that is, do you know how many birth certificates that you now have to grapple with? Because the birth certificate in Harris County is different from the birth certificate in New Zealand. How can an EC person representative be able to identify what's authentic? And so my argument is, if you have a birth certificate that identifies you as a Ghanaian, use that birth certificate to obtain a passport for the purpose of registering to vote. But now then it becomes, the issue becomes the regional, the Ghanaian in the regional areas such as Nigeria or Mali, who necessarily didn't exit with a passport. What document are you going to use for those?
Well, you know, they really have to find some document. And the document that they have to find is whatever the Electoral Commission allows. Either a passport. If you don't have a passport, then you need to get a passport. If they allow a birth certificate, then you have to get a birth certificate. Going back to your issue of your daughter having a Harris County birth certificate, that by itself will not be enough. However, if that is accompanied by a sworn affidavit from you, where you have
my name is on the birth certificate.
Yes,
as a father.
but you still have to, you know, because your name being there doesn't prove that you're a Ghanaian. But you have
doesn't prove that she's a Ghanaian.
No, you that you are a Ghanaian.
Okay.
It's just a name there. It doesn't
then
say.
Who's the affidavit going to come from?
From you.
Oh, if I'm not a Ghanaian, how do I write an affidavit?
Well, because when you swear the affidavit, you are also going to give particulars about your passport and so on. And so then your passport then becomes the basis for their being.
So why can't I take my passport with her birth certificate and register?
That will be. That's the same thing.
Okay.
That's the same thing. Yes.
Next thing they said is expensive, too expensive to implement.
What is?
ROPA.
Maybe, but that's no excuse to deny your people from voting. ROPA is expensive, but voting in Ghana is also expensive. Maybe we shouldn't vote in Ghana because it's expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know why people always bring in economics when some right is being given to people who are outside the country, but they don't think about it when the right is being given to people here. It's expensive to have elections here. Does that mean we should stop voting? No. That means we have to figure out some ways of funding the exercise.
But you have to really do a job of convincing the let's say the trotro driver, and I don't have anything against trotro drivers, but just a name that came into my mind. Trotro driver in say Tamale, who's dead set a common DNA, you're using the money to go and people, if they want to vote, why don't they come home? What do you say to that trotro driver?
Well, you know, the trotro driver, and I don't think it's just trotro drivers, it's also professors, it's also doctors, and so on and so forth. I think they need to be comfortable that what is happening is that they have brothers, they have sisters, they have other stakeholders who do not live in the country. It's important that a Ghanaian, no matter where he is given the opportunity to talk about things that affect this country. By the way, in Africa, even poorer countries, Niger, Senegal, other countries have been able to afford that. So if Mali can afford such an exercise, it strikes me as just complaining that Ghanaians cannot afford it.
They say you don't pay tax.
We pay taxes. I mean, I pay taxes in Ghana that most people in Ghana pay.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you buy a ticket and the airport taxes.
Not just the airport taxes, but whenever I'm here, I pay a lot of taxes.
Even if you don't come here, You're there. You send money for somebody to buy roofing sheets for you. There's VAT.
People don't understand that even if you don't physically live here, you can have a business that is operating here for on you and on your behalf.
That's right.
And that business is earning income, and you are paying taxes on
people.
that.
Yes.
The notion of somebody being physically present in some place is an old concept. You can be anywhere and be running a business in Ghana and be earning income in Ghana and so on and so forth.
Not to mention that a tax receipt is not one of the prerequisites to register to vote if you're in Ghana. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Finally, why don't you just get on a plane to come and vote?
It will be the same thing as why don't people in Tamale ride a bus to come and vote at the stadium in Accra? That would be the cheapest way to run an election, is to have everybody show up at Accra Sports Stadium to vote. That way we save a lot of money. Why don't we say that about people in Tamale, people in Kumasi and so on? Why does it become an issue when all of a sudden we say we want the people in Togo or Ivory Coast or UK or US to vote? I think it's a made-up problem. And as I've said, if Mali can do it, so can Ghana do it.
Viewers, we can go on and on and on, but we have to wrap it up here. I want to thank my guests, Professor Kwekwaza, but we leave you with this quote, and I think you can do a better job. The constitutional provision that if you're 18 years or older and of sound mind, is entitled to vote and must be registered to vote in Ghana's election or referendum, paraphrased. There's nowhere in that quote that says living inside the borders of Ghana. And so based on that alone, if you have a problem with ROPA being implemented, you have a problem with the Constitution. This has been Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and I'll thank you immensely for watching. We'll see you next week.